In my previous life, Xue Chonghui married his white moonlight, the orphan daughter of a war hero, and even gave her the status of a formal wife. Everyone praised the Xue family for being magnanimous and loyal in love and righteousness. But on the day our entire family was thrown into prison, my mother-in-law pointed at me and cursed. If it weren't for you agreeing to let her in, how would the Xue family have ended up like this? Now reborn, I looked at that white moonlight's belly. Since you're pregnant, why don't you all go reunite in the underworld together? I've been betrothed to Chonghui since childhood. We grew up together. Now that I'm the orphan of a national hero, even becoming the crown princess wouldn't be out of reach. Shenning, what do you have to compete with me? Hearing those same words again, seeing that same repulsive face, I was certain I had been reborn. Reborn 10 years into the past, just 6 months after Xue Chonghui and I got married. His beloved Lu Xuero, the so-called White Moonlight, entered the Xue household under the pretense of being a hero's orphan. 3 months earlier, Prince Rui, Lu Xuero's father-in-law who had long been stationed in the southern border, took advantage of a birthday banquet for General Lu to stage a rebellion. General Lu led the troops in a desperate counterattack, and in the end, the entire clan perished. Only Lu Xuero managed to escape back to Jinling alive. Though she was Prince Rui's daughter-in-law, her father and brother had defended the city valiantly. The emperor not only absolved her of blame, but even honored her publicly. Now she was the most sought-after woman in the city. Countless noble families hoped to marry her, eager to gain a reputation for honoring the family of a loyal martyr. But they were all rejected. Lu Xuero chose the Xue family. She had once been engaged to Xue Chonghui, son of Grand Tutor Xue. But later, she had been seduced by the dashing heir of Prince Rui, and the two shamelessly got involved. Of course, with her current status, no one dared to bring up her past. Her reunion with Xue Chonghui was seen as a romantic tale. Everyone was curious. What title would the Xue family grant Lu Xuero? After all, the legitimate daughter of a general's household, was already his official wife. But someone like Lu Xuero couldn't possibly be made a concubine. Perhaps I was the only person in all of Jinling who knew the real answer. In my previous life, he planned to marry Lu Xuero with full ceremonial honors, placing her equal to me in status. When I refused, he threw a divorce letter in my face. You're so jealous and petty. If you can't accept it, then take the divorce letter and go crawling back to your general's estate. Back then, I swallowed my pride and endured it all, watching helplessly as Lu Xuero stepped into our home. She took half of my husband's bed. From that point on, the two of us fought endlessly over this man, bitter, bloody battles that nearly ruined us both. She once snuck musk into the pillow my family sent me, causing infertility. I only discovered it 3 years later. It took 2 years of treatment before I could finally get pregnant. But 1 month before my due date, her son pushed me down the stairs on purpose. I lost the baby. You kill my child. You'll pay for it with your life. My hands were already around Lu Xuero's neck when Xue Chonghui grabbed me by the wrist and slammed me to the ground. Ziyu just accidentally pushed you. What's it got to do with Xuero? It's not like the child did it on purpose. If you throw another tantrum, go kneel in the ancestral hall. Ziyu was their son, the firstborn of the Xue family, and he was doted on like a little prince. I could only swallow the blood along with my broken teeth. We fought for 10 years, and neither of us won. It wasn't worth it. If only I had been reborn a little earlier, I never would have married Xue Chonghui. Thousands of thoughts rushed through my mind in a single instant. Just then, the guests arriving for today's banquet began crossing the arch bridge to the Xue residence. Lu Xuero suddenly grabbed my arm and cried out with a quiver in her voice. Sister Aang, I didn't mean to. Before she could finish, splash. A huge wave exploded from the lotus pond. I came up coughing after swallowing several mouthfuls of water, flailing my arms and screaming in panic. Someone help. Help me. Yes, I had fallen into the water. But I had done it on purpose. In my past life, Lu Xuero had grabbed my arm, jumped in herself, and accused me of pushing her. I had no way to defend myself. Xue Chonghui slapped me across the face in front of everyone. My mother-in-law punished me by making me kneel in the ancestral hall. This time, with my past life's memory, I jumped in first, never giving her the chance to frame me again. Though, the water really was cold. It was midwinter, bone-chilling, like an invisible hand yanking me downward into the abyss. I barely thrashed a few times before I lost all strength. I wouldn't die, but it sure felt like it. After a while, I bathed and changed into dry clothes. Wrapped in a thick white fox fur cloak, I sat in the Songha Hall with my in-laws and my own father and brothers. Lu Xuero's eyes were red from crying. She clung to Xue Chonghui like a helpless waif, as if she had been the one who fell in. Xue Chonghui looked heartbroken. Brother Chonghui, please believe me, it really was Sister Aang who jumped in on her own. It had nothing to do with me, Lu Xuero said, then cast a pitiful glance my way. Even if Sister doesn't like me and wants to frame me, she shouldn't harm herself like this. What if something truly terrible had happened? I sneered inwardly. She wasn't lying, but my father-in-law, the Grand Tutor, looked darker by the second. Because none of them believed her. Just like in my previous life, no one had believed me either. Xuero is such a kind girl. I believe her, Xue Chonghui blurted out, rushing to defend the woman he loved. My father-in-law's expression darkened even more. They weren't even formally engaged, yet his son was already acting like he couldn't let go, defending the widow of a traitor prince right out in the open. What a disgrace to the Xue family. Today was supposed to be a thank you banquet hosted by the Xue family. Half a month ago, the old madam of the family had passed away. All the families in Jinling with any official rank had set up roadside memorials. As her granddaughter-in-law, I had been busy day and night. I had arranged all the funeral rites with great care and diligence. Even the banquet today was something I had personally planned. It should have been the perfect chance for me to earn some public praise. But it was all ruined by Lu Xuero's calculated scheme. In my past life, my father-in-law had scolded me in a fit of rage. With such a vicious heart, how are you worthy of being the official wife of our Grand Tutor's family? A man having multiple wives and concubines is nothing unusual. The guests had chimed in one after another. How could the general's daughter be so ill-mannered? Jealousy is the greatest flaw in a woman. Shun's behavior is utterly disgraceful. But Miss Lu is the orphan of a war hero. In an instant, I became the target of everyone's criticism. This time around, I would reverse the situation completely. But unlike Lu Xuero, I didn't have the luxury of being doted on by Xue Chonghui. Watching the two of them exchange tender glances and speak with affection, I found that I no longer felt the slightest hint of jealousy. I had truly let go. Everyone in the room was silent. The air pressure was so heavy it was suffocating. The first to speak was still Xue Chonghui. He shot me a reproachful look and said, "Father, mother, father-in-law, brother, Xuero didn't do it on purpose. And Aang seems fine now. Let's not be so harsh. Can't we just let it go?" Let it go? My little sister almost died, and you want to just brush it off. The men of the Zhengui general's household had all been forged on the battlefield. Each one a hardened soldier, and naturally, their presence was overwhelming. Lu Xuero began sobbing in a delicate, trembling voice. Xue Chonghui rushed to shield her behind him. "Brother, please don't be so angry. Xuero is just a fragile woman who recently lost her entire family. Even if she has done anything wrong, surely she deserves some sympathy." "That was meant for me." Xue Chonghui, do you even remember who you brought into this house with a grand wedding procession just 6 months ago? And who was it that betrayed your engagement and shamelessly got involved with Prince Rui's heir, making you the laughingstock of all Jinling? Have you forgotten the pain so soon? Yes, the Emperor wishes to honor the orphans of loyal martyrs. But among all the noble sons in Jinling, anyone else could have done it. Anyone except you. Yes, everyone knew it had been Lu Xuero who abandoned Xue Chonghui back then, choosing to marry another man. My brother had struck a nerve, and Xue Chonghui's face changed drastically. He flew into a rage out of humiliation. "This is my family's private matter, brother. You're overstepping." Silence. "You're a scholar, aren't you? What happened to your learning in poetry and propriety? Apologize to your brother-in-law." My father-in-law slammed his palm on the table in fury. But in truth, he only looked stern. What he really wanted was to downplay the situation and settle things quietly. "There's no need," I said calmly. "Since my husband cannot forget the past with Miss Liu, even having a child with her, and I'm not an unreasonable person. If it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be. I am willing to divorce." As soon as I spoke, everyone in the room was visibly shaken. Their surprise was understandable. They had no idea. Not even Lu Xiuero herself. In my past life, she had given birth prematurely. But the baby had shown no signs of being underdeveloped. Clearly, it had reached full term. Counting the months, she would have gotten pregnant around this time. "You're slandering me. Brother Chonghuai and I may have affection for each other, but we've always maintained propriety. I'm just a helpless orphan. If sister doesn't want me in this house, fine. But why must you ruin my reputation like this?" Lu Xiuero was starting to panic. "Pure." I let out a mocking laugh. "Those two characters have nothing to do with you. But it's fine if you won't admit it. Imperial physician Zhou, who just examined me, should still be in the residence. Why don't we invite him back to take your pulse?" I didn't really intend to air their dirty laundry. I just wanted to get out of this mess as quickly as possible. Lu Xiuero's expression was a spectacular display of emotions. She must have realized the problem, too. She had only entered the Xue household less than 2 months ago. During that time, Xue Chonghuai's grandmother had been gravely ill and passed away. The whole family was still in mourning. Yet the two of them had been indulging in secret trysts, full of passion, and she had even gotten pregnant. If word of this got out, Xue Chonghuai's eyes lit up with both surprise and joy. He looked at Lu Xiuero, seemingly getting the confirmation he needed, then turned to me. "Shining, you've been married into this family for over half a year, and still there's been no pregnancy. Now that Xiuero is carrying my child, it's truly a double blessing. She doesn't care for status. I only wish to make her a secondary wife. As long as you don't stir up trouble in the future, there'll still be a place for you here in the Xue household." What? Did this man not understand human speech? Why had I ever liked him in the first place? Yes, I remember now. The day Lu Xiuero broke off their engagement, I ran into a drunk Xue Chonghuai at Wangyue Tower. In the moonlight, he was half drunk, murmuring Lu Xiuero's name over and over. He seemed like one of those rare, hopelessly devoted men. I stepped forward and handed him a handkerchief, gently persuading him to head home. I knew Lu Xiuero had already married Prince Rui's son, and that there was no hope for them. After I married into the family, I managed the household by day, kept him company as he studied by night, and even made him nourishing ginseng soup. One day, he held my hand and said he had been foolish in his youth, misplacing his affections, but now that we were married, he would treat me with all his heart. I thought that if I gave enough, love would come. I was far too naive. At that moment, my father burst into laughter. "So it turns out our general's estate has fallen so far that we need young Master Xue's generosity to feed my daughter?" Only then did Xue Chonghuai realize he had said the wrong thing. "That's not what I meant. If Aang is willing to accept Xiuero, there's no need for a divorce. I just don't want Aang to be made a laughingstock." "You don't need to worry about that," my father said coldly. "Even if people do laugh, it won't be at my daughter. Isn't that right, Lord Grand Tutor?" Grand Tutor Xue and his wife looked like their faces had been smeared with soot, too ashamed to even lift their heads. As the exemplar of scholars across the realm, the Grand Tutor valued propriety and filial piety above all else. Yet his own son had done something so disgraceful during a period of mourning. Who, exactly, would become the true laughingstock? "You disgrace. Kneel down and admit your wrongdoing." The Grand Tutor was trembling with rage. But Xue Chonghuai clearly didn't think it was a big deal. He dropped to his knees with obvious reluctance. What did propriety or morality matter when compared to true love, after all? Enough, my father said. Since young Master Shui already has someone else in his heart, and my daughter is willing to grant him his freedom, then let's write the divorce agreement right now. Both parties will sign and seal it. From this moment forward, you go your way and we go ours. My older brother, still seething, added sharply, remember this, Shui, this divorce isn't because you rejected our sister. It's she who no longer wants you. How had I not seen it before? Even if I said nothing, my father and brother would always stand behind me. They were my greatest strength. They were the ones I should have cherished. Wasting my youth in that walled-off courtyard, battling other women over a man. What a tragic misuse of time. Once the divorce documents were signed and sealed, I immediately ordered my maid to pack our things and left the Shui household with my father and brothers. The moment I stepped out the front gates, it felt like I had crawled out of hell and back into the land of the living. This was what true rebirth felt like. Shui Chonghui and Lu Xuero's wedding was fast approaching. Since they were still in the mourning period, the Shui family hadn't planned to throw a grand celebration. But the emperor himself issued a special decree of commendation, praising Lu Xuero for continuing the bloodline of the Lu family and bestowing a generous array of royal treasures. Now, everyone knew Lu Xuero was pregnant. While I was dining at Wanghua Tower, I overheard a group of noble women gossiping in the next room. The entire Lu family was wiped out, and the old madam of the Shui family just passed away, and the rebellion down south isn't even over yet. Yet those two. It's really a pity for that Shin girl. A proper daughter of a general's house, and she was forced into a divorce by that shameless woman. If it were me, I'd have divorced too. Who cares about gossip? I wouldn't put up with that kind of humiliation. But no, our emperor had to go and reward her. I heard the gifts filled an entire courtyard. One of the women lowered her voice. Say, for the emperor to know something as private as a pregnancy, does that mean His Majesty has eyes and ears everywhere? Are you crazy? You can't just say things like that. The woman immediately clammed up, glancing around nervously with a look of deep fear. It was an open secret that the emperor had spies in every noble household to keep his officials in check. But to publicly announce Lu Xuero's pregnancy through an imperial decree, something about it felt off. And those so-called royal gifts, every one of them was supposedly a rare treasure. But when you looked closely, not a single item was actually useful. You couldn't exactly sell imperial gifts, unless you didn't want your head. In my past life, Lu Xuero had been diagnosed as pregnant only after marrying in. None of this had happened. Could it be because I divorced Shui Chonghui, the future had already begun to shift? Would the Shui family's fate change as well? In my previous life, the fall of the Shui family came like a sudden storm. I only remembered that one day, everyone was arrested and thrown into prison. Days later, heads rolled. Many didn't even know what had happened. I learned later from a few prison guards. The Lu family had long been colluding with the rebellious Prince Rue. One of General Lu's junior officers narrowly escaped and spent 10 years evading assassins, eventually presenting evidence of the Lu family's crimes before the emperor. Even though the culprits had been dead for 10 years, their treason could not be erased. To appease the public's fury, the Shui family, who had married Lu Xuero, became the first to fall. Back then, who didn't praise the Shui family for being noble and forgiving, for their unwavering loyalty and affection? But when they were paraded through the streets, every one of them was pelted with rotten vegetables and eggs, including me. My mother-in-law had pointed at me through the prison bars and screamed, "If you hadn't agreed to let that cursed woman marry into our house, we wouldn't be in this mess." Even at the brink of death, I still had to endure that humiliation. Looking back now, had the emperor never truly trusted the Lu family to begin with? The Lu and Shui families had been planning to marry, but then General Lu was sent to guard Muzhou. The following year, Prince Rui's heir arrived in the capital for the Empress Dowager's birthday celebration. And somehow, by pure coincidence, he ended up tangled up with Lu Xuero, a power-hungry prince, and a general stationed with troops just 50 miles from the southern border. People close to the situation are often the most blinded. There were questions I had never thought to ask before. All I'd known was how to be jealous and petty. Only now did I begin to notice the details I had once overlooked. After the meal, I took the carriage back home. As we passed through a narrow alleyway, another four-horse carriage approached head-on. It was the Xue family's carriage. The alley was too narrow. There wasn't enough room for both carriages to pass, so we each came to a stop. "Is that Sister Aang in the carriage?" It was Lu Xuero's voice. I lifted the curtain slightly and saw her holding onto Xue Chonghuai's arm, smiling sweetly at me. "Oh, it really is Sister Aang. What a coincidence. Consort Yun has summoned me and Chonghuai to the palace. Since you're not in a hurry, would you mind letting us pass first?" Compared to this pair of lovebirds, I was alone. But I clearly remembered that the route to the palace from the Xue residence didn't go through this alley. She had come here deliberately, just to show off their closeness. I glanced at her briefly, then lowered the curtain and instructed the coachman. "I suddenly feel like having that frozen yogurt from Yufengjai. Let's turn around and get some." The coachman turned the carriage without hesitation. That put me in front, leaving the Xue family's carriage to follow behind. I no longer cared to compete with Lu Xuero. She was the one who insisted on getting in my face. So fine, let her eat dust in my wake. The entire way, Lu Xuero kept performing her little act. "Chonghuai, try this tea. It's from a private stash my father's been aging for years. And this candied fruit, I made it myself. Isn't it delicious paired with the tea?" Xue Chonghuai looked perfectly content. "Xuero, you should leave these chores to the servants. You're pregnant now. I don't want you tiring yourself out." The two of them bantered back and forth, acting like the perfect couple. Consort Yun is so good to me. The other day, she even summoned the Imperial physician to check on me. He said the baby I'm carrying is a boy. "Really?" Xue Chonghuai beamed with joy. "Of course. He said it himself. How could it be false?" "That's wonderful. He'll be the firstborn of the Xue family. Father and mother will be thrilled." I had been married to Xue Chonghuai for years without bearing a child. It was obvious those words were meant for me. But now, I felt only relief. If I had had a child, it would have only dragged another innocent soul into this mess. Later, I heard that Lu Xuero was frequently summoned to the palace. She kept the noblewomen company, chatted with them, even got to meet the emperor now and then. She had become a true palace favorite. Everyone in Jinling was green with envy. Etiquette? Morals? All thrown to the wind. So, what if she was pregnant out of wedlock? What really mattered was the emperor's favor and the goodwill of the palace elite. However, my brother told me he had seen Xue family servants sneaking off to pawn valuables. I couldn't help laughing. Nobles in the palace have seen everything. Pleasing them isn't easy. My brother nodded in agreement. Exactly. They're pouring silver in and not even getting a sound in return. Who'd waste money chasing after empty flattery? On the day of Xue Chonghuai and Lu Xuero's grand wedding, half of Jinling's officials showed up. But not one invitation was sent to our general's estate. Not that we wanted one. Instead, we grilled lamb in our own backyard. Fresh meat from the frontier, paired with osmanthus wine from Qianchun Tower. It was as joyful as a gathering of immortals. My father stroked the top of my head like he had when I was a child. "Aang's all grown up in the blink of an eye. That little bastard from the Xue family really has no eye for treasure." My brother, slightly tipsy, chimed in. "Little sis, our general's estate will always be your home. Having the whole family together like this, it's the best feeling in the world." Too bad in my past life, I only woke from my dream when it was far too late, when we were already separated by life and death. A few days later, the 9th prince arrived with an imperial decree. He commanded my father and brother to accompany him south to suppress the rebellion. They were to depart the very next day. This had never happened in my previous life. My father and brother were both distinguished generals, and the emperor had long viewed our Xin family with suspicion. After promoting my father to a second-rank general, he gradually began stripping away his military authority. Even my brother, after returning to the capital for debriefing a year ago, had not been assigned to any post since. In short, We now had titles without power. I figured the emperor had already forgotten we existed. So why summon my father and brother to lead troops again now? That night, they packed their gear without a word of complaint, while I lay restless, drifting off only to fall into a haunting dream. In a torrential downpour, the entire Xue family knelt in the execution yard, surrounded by soldiers. My father and brother were blocked from entering. It was the emperor himself who had issued the order. My father and brother, men of valor and glory, knelt for 3 days outside the Hall of Supreme Harmony, begging only to spare my life. But there was nothing they could do. As the executioner's blade fell, I heard my father cry out in despair, "Aang! My Aang!" I shut my eyes the moment the blade came down. "Father, brother, I'm sorry." I awoke with a start, my pillow soaked in tears. I didn't know if the Xue family's fate would change, but I was no longer part of that family. In this life, all I wanted was to live well with my father and brother. The next morning, I went outside the city to see them off. I had planned to say nothing, as I usually did, but to my surprise, the usually reserved ninth prince actually approached me and spoke. "Miss Shun, pay no mind to the rumors. Once your father and brother return, the truth will be clear to all." I didn't understand why he was saying this to me, but he was royalty, which meant perhaps this wasn't just small talk. I stood atop the city wall, watching the king's army, banners flapping in the wind, march off in grand formation. With my father and brother leaving like this, they wouldn't return for 3 months. Winter gave way to spring, grass grew lush, and orioles filled the air with song. The Earl's manor hosted a polo gathering. Their youngest daughter, my close friend, sent me an invitation. In my previous life, I'd received many such invitations. I once told Xue Chonghui I liked polo, but he scoffed. Our Xue family is one of scholars. As the wife of a noble household, how can you stoop to such vulgar, uncultured games? It's unbecoming. A proper woman should focus on embroidery, music, chess, calligraphy, and painting, just like Xuero once. He abruptly cut himself off, but I knew what he meant to say. Back then, Lu Xuero had been known as the most talented woman in the capital, a perfect match for her equally accomplished brother. After that, I started pretending to be refined. I studied poetry and painting and never touched polo again. Now, galloping across the soft turf, swinging my mallet freely, with cheers ringing in my ears, this was the life I was meant to have. After winning several rounds and collecting a few lucky tokens, I headed back to the carriage to change, only to bump into Xue Chonghui and Lu Xuero again. Her belly was already showing. Xue Chonghui frowned, displeased. "You're pregnant. What are you doing at a place like this? Didn't you come, even though you hate polo?" Xue Chonghui looked away, clearly guilty. "Can you not make a scene? Go home now." But Lu Xuero didn't let up. "Or is it because you heard Shining would be here? What? Even a polo match had to become part of their drama." "I'm not going home," she snapped. "I want to see what cheap tricks that whore used to steal your heart." "Excuse me," I finally spoke, "but can you two not drag others into your marital spats? Even dogs know not to block the road." Xue Chonghui looked flustered. "Ailing, I didn't expect to see you here. You look healthier than before." "Thank you for the compliment, young Master Xue." My face remained expressionless. Back when I lived in the Xue household, I was run ragged managing the estate, my face pale and drained. Now, touching my smooth, healthy cheek, I had to admit, resting at home these months had done me good. By contrast, Lu Xuero looked sickly and sallow. Even makeup couldn't hide it. Her temper had also grown worse. "Shunning, you shameless wench, eavesdropping on a husband and wife's private conversation. Didn't you act all high and mighty when you divorced him? Now that I'm pregnant, you're trying to seduce him again? Disgusting." I wasn't surprised by anything Lu Xuero said. In my past life, I'd heard far worse from her. So many times I'd lost count. We were both women. Why degrade ourselves over someone like Xue Chonghui? I sighed, and shook my head. You're the one yelling. My ears didn't ask to be sullied. Speaking of shameless, doesn't it count when someone seduces a married man and gets herself pregnant? You. I couldn't even be bothered to look at her again. I turned and climbed into my carriage. Her shouting had drawn a small crowd of noble youths. Xue Chonghui, feeling humiliated, grew irritated and snapped at her. Let's go. Stop embarrassing yourself. His words hit me like a punch.
He used to say the same to me.
I wasn't as sweet or docile as Lu Xuero. I didn't cater to his every whim. But if I had, the Xue household would have been hollowed out by now. The Xue family were civil officials, always posturing as high-minded. But their household expenses were huge. My father-in-law's meager salary couldn't cover anything, so I quietly supplemented it with my dowry. There were many younger relatives in the Xue clan. To help them succeed, I pulled every string I could to get them into the Imperial Academy. I managed the household strictly, placing firm boundaries on the younger ones. Once, the third young master racked up gambling debts and was reported to the estate. He knelt in front of me, sobbing and clutching my skirt. Sister-in-law, please help me. If father finds out, he'll break my legs. So I deducted his allowance for several months to cover the debt. Then I ordered that future stipends, beyond food and clothing, be used solely for buying books. Then came Lu Xuero. One day, that same third young master ran to Xue Chonghui, accusing me of withholding his allowance. Xue Chonghui ordered me to pay him back. If I told the truth, my in-laws would punish me for hiding the matter. So I couldn't defend myself. I had to take out the golden hairpin my mother had given me as part of my dowry and give it to the third young master. He took it and left me with this parting jab. Now that's a proper sister-in-law. Xuero never skimps on us like someone does. The next day, I saw that very hairpin in Lu Xuero's hair. Sister, she said sweetly, I made some snacks for third brother the other day. This must be his thank you gift. Men so cheap at their core. The final whistle of the polo match blew. My close friend, the Earl's daughter, Zhu Yue, came running over. I heard from a servant that you had a spat with someone from the Xue family. Everything okay? I'm fine. What? Is she going to eat me? In my past life, I rarely saw Yue after I got married, but we kept in touch through letters. I poured all my bitterness into those pages. When the Xue family was executed, I wondered if those letters had gotten her into trouble. Seeing that I was truly all right, Yue let out a breath of relief. You don't know how outrageous that woman is. My mother says she's practically emptied the Xue estate just to win favor in the palace. Just now, when Consort Yun's brother came to play, she yanked the white jade pendant off Xue Chonghui's belt as a prize. His face, pfft. She burst into laughter mid-sentence. I quickly held out my hand to steady her in case she banged her head. You didn't see it. His face was longer than the horse's. The horse standing next to him literally shook its head. They may look glamorous, but their younger siblings in the Xue family can't even afford new clothes for a spring outing. A spring breeze lifted the edge of my carriage curtain. I glanced outside. In the distance, Xue Chonghui was staring in our direction. I ignored him and finished dinner with Yue before heading home. But as I turned into an alley, Xue Chonghui jumped out and blocked my path. I nearly screamed, but he grinned and said, Aang, it's fate. I knew you only divorced me in a fit of anger. I know you still have feelings for me. What was he even saying? I couldn't understand a single word. Was he drunk? He reached for me, eyes brimming with fake sincerity. But Aang, it was you who asked for the divorce. Our family has a reputation to uphold, especially my parents. They still haven't gotten over it. So, if you want to get back together, you'll need to show some humility. Since Xuero's pregnant, she can't manage the household. Why don't you come back tomorrow and help out? Once you prove yourself again. Hey, why are you running? Aang. No need to be shy, we were husband and wife.
Of course I ran.
Luckily, the general's estate was just around the corner. I dashed inside like my life depended on it. Lock the door. There's a lunatic chasing me. In my previous life, before Lu Xuero returned, Xue Chonghui and I had shared 6 sweet months of mutual respect and affection. The kind of quiet happiness between an ordinary husband and wife. I had married into the Xue family at my father and brother's arrangement. Though our love had never burned as fiercely as is with Lu Xuero, I once truly wished to grow old with him, side by side. But once Lu Xuero came back, everything changed. Endless schemes, slander, and traps turned me into someone bitter and twisted. What little bond we had was worn away completely. What remained was nothing but resentment and disgust. But now, even that was gone. I just wanted to live the rest of this life in peace. Xue Chonghui clearly didn't feel the same. A few days later, he sent me an invitation he wanted to visit. Our household men are away. I'm afraid we can't receive young Master Xue. Please leave. But the very next day, he rode over with a full entourage, a palanquin, and a team of servants. I was too abrupt the other day. I should at least offer you a dignified way back. Today, I've come to personally escort you home. You don't need to prepare anything, just have your people bring your dowry. The manor is ready. There was a strange gleam in Xue Chonghui's eyes. He hadn't even looked this sincere when he first proposed to me. But I was only confused. Has young Master Xue misunderstood something? Not at all. Then when did I ever say I wanted to return to the Xue residence? When we divorced, I made it perfectly clear that we were done. You keep coming after me, why? Xue Chonghui looked genuinely stunned. No, Aang, it's you who's been dropping hints. That day, your carriage deliberately pulled ahead of mine, just to get close and hear my voice, didn't you? And at the polo gathering, you won match after match to get my attention. It was only then I realized how bold and charming you really are. After that, you even tried to start a conversation with me. We've clearly rekindled our feelings. I'm sure if we reconcile now, we'll be happier than ever. Don't worry, you'll still be my official wife, equal in status to Xuero. It's just that Xuero is carrying my heir, the legitimate son of the Xue family. So I'll need you to be more understanding toward her. Was he delusional? Too bad, I wasn't a physician. There was nothing I could do for that condition. I took a deep breath. After all, we had once been husband and wife. I turned to his servant and asked, when did your master start showing symptoms like this? Has he seen the family physician? Aang, what do you mean by that? Xue Chonghui frowned. I'm not sick. What's there to treat? Did I say something wrong? I've already humbled myself like this. And it's still not enough? A proper woman should be gentle and obedient, not so aggressive. In both this life and the last, talking to Xue Chonghui had always felt like speaking to a wall. No wonder we ended up a miserable couple. I was exhausted. Hands behind my back, I sighed. Young Master Xue, do you live by the sea? How is it you're sticking your nose all the way into my general's estate? If you've dreamed up your own fantasies and try to force them on others, what else could that be but an illness? You should see a doctor before it gets worse. Don't waste your youth. Close the gate. Show our guest out. Xue Chonghui trembled with fury, pointing after me and stammering. You. When had he become so full of himself? He'd made up a whole romance in his head, and now thought he could lecture me on how to be a woman? Absolutely ridiculous. But this farce wasn't over yet. Xue Chonghui switched tactics and started writing me letters. Pages and pages of self-righteous nonsense, preaching morality and how a woman should behave. A virtuous woman follows the 3 obediences and 4 virtues. Once married, she must obey her husband. Throughout history, divorced women have been disloyal to their husbands, unfilial to their parents, impure and shameful to their families. Aang, you are a noble woman. Don't follow in their footsteps. When I didn't reply, he grew enraged. He sent more letters, this time cursing me. He said I'd never marry again unless I crawled back to the Xue family on my knees, kowtowing every 3 steps. And even then, he'd only grant me a concubine's position. I was so amused, I ate 2 extra bowls of rice. One day, at Wangyue Tower, I ran into Madame Wang from the Xue residence. She had been dismissed and now worked as a cook there. Thank goodness you got that divorce, miss. You wouldn't believe what that Lu woman is like now. Always yelling at the servants, even talking back to her in-laws, flaunting her pregnancy to curry favor in the palace, buying rare trinkets until she drained the estate dry. That's why we were all let go. She leaned in and lowered her voice. And last month, Xue Chonghui came storming to your house, didn't he? I nodded. Madame Wang slapped her thigh. Of course. He wasn't coming to win you back. He just wanted your dowry silver. So that's why. And the elders of the Xue family didn't even stop him. Even Lu Xuero stayed silent. Given her nature, she'd never hold back unless it benefited her. In my past life, the Xue family wore the guise of scholarly virtue, but I'd been secretly patching their finances with my dowry all along. And now they wanted to take advantage of me again? Not a chance. After you sent him away, Madame Wang continued, he brought in a young girl who looks just like you. Now he spends every night in her quarters and won't even step into the main room. The back courtyard is chaos every day. I understood instantly. Same as last time. Even after I left the Xue household, there would always be another woman to fight Lu Xuero. And this time he picked someone who resembled me.
Disgusting.
Anyone watching from the outside might think he was still pining for me. But the truth? He was just moved by his own delusions. Of course, people always desire what they can't have. 2 months later, news of victory kept arriving from the south. On the day the 9th prince returned in triumph, I rushed to the city gates at dawn to greet them, but saw no sign of my father or brother. Had something gone wrong? Only at sunset was I summoned to the palace. My heart sank even deeper. I had entered the palace a few times as a child, back when mother was still alive. She had been close friends with the empress, and well-liked among the palace ladies. They always showered me with treats. After she passed, I never saw them again. There was a line between ruler and subject, and the emperor had long regarded the Xin family with suspicion. But this time, the visit was surprisingly smooth. A eunuch from the empress's household led me directly into Fengyi Palace. The palace ladies were all there, as was the 9th prince. They sat in a circle, warm and lively, like a family. They welcomed me with bright smiles and called me over to join them. At first, I was a little nervous, but soon realized the ladies of the palace were just as kind and warm as I remembered. After a few exchanges, the plate in front of me was piled high like a little mountain. Consort Yun smiled radiantly. Though it had been over a decade since I last saw her, time had clearly treated her gently. She took my hand and said warmly, "Aang, you look so much like your mother, your temperament too. When you divorced that fool from the Xue family, we were all cheering for you behind the scenes. As for that idiot Lu woman, we had her running in circles. Does she really think Imperial favor is so easily won?" The Empress chimed in. "How could that Lu girl ever compare to our Aang? And the Xue family, how dare they humiliate you for the sake of someone like her?" Truly blind. Only then did I understand. It had been the palace ladies themselves who intentionally had Lu Xuero send them gifts. Even the emperor had allowed it. They took turns praising me until I was practically a chipmunk, cheeks stuffed with snacks. Later, a palace maid led me to the back hall to change clothes. And I just happened to run into Lu Xuero. She looked me up and down with contempt. "So, you're here to bribe the noble ladies too, huh? Pretending to be so high and mighty in public, yet behind the scenes seducing married men and groveling for attention from the nobles. TCH. Let me give you some advice. Palace ladies are very picky. What could your rough and low-born general's estate possibly offer? Better watch yourself, or you might not even know how you died." Before I could respond, "Insolent." The voice rang out from afar. The Empress and all the consorts walked in. "Aang is my honored guest," the Empress declared coldly. "Who dares speak to her so rudely? Guards, remove her." Lu Xuero immediately crumbled to the floor, trembling, and pleaded, "Your Majesty, please forgive me. I came to present gifts. This is..." She hadn't even lifted the delicate redwood box in her hands when Consort Yin interrupted. "You really thought we wanted your cheap trinkets?
Fool.
We were just playing with you." The Empress waved her sleeve again. Throw her out. From this day forward, without my permission, Lu Xuero is not allowed to enter the palace again. Shameless woman, planning her own marriage like some brazen harlot. Even looking at her disgusts me. No, Your Majesty, please. No matter how hard Lu Xuero sobbed and begged, the palace guards still dragged her out without mercy. When I left the palace, it was the 9th prince who escorted me. I gathered my courage and asked, Your Highness, is it true, what the ladies said, that my father and brother were reinstated because I divorced the Xue family? My father and brother were both exceptional military leaders. Even if the emperor feared the Shin family, surely he wouldn't ignore them when rebels were storming the capital, right? Half of it, he replied. And the other half? He turned his head to look at me. In his obsidian eyes, I swore I saw starlight swirling. The other half is because your father and brother are unmatched in valor and utterly loyal to His Majesty. His answer confirmed what I had suspected. My divorce had helped ease the emperor's doubts. That was why my father and brother had been entrusted with command again. With that, the heavy weight in my chest finally lifted. Your father and brother not only helped quell the rebellion, the 9th prince continued. They also uncovered a hidden traitor. Once they return and report to His Majesty, it will shake the entire court. A hidden traitor? My heart nearly skipped a beat. Wasn't that truth only uncovered 10 years later in my last life? Why was it exposed so early this time? The fear of house arrest and executions washed over me again. I shivered. A master once told me, never meddle in another's fate, lest you suffer the consequences yourself. So even after I was reborn, aside from divorcing Xue Chonghui, I hadn't actively tried to change anything. I wanted everything to unfold naturally. But somehow, things had still changed. The root of it all was that divorce. Not long after, a strange rumor began to circulate. The emperor was going to bestow a marriage between me and the 9th prince. Most people kept quiet, but Xue Chonghui exploded. He barged into my home with a group of men and gave me a choice: white silk, poison, or dagger. One woman cannot serve 2 men, he declared. In life, you are a Xue. In death, you are a Xue ghost. When you die, I will bury you with the rights of a principal wife in the Xue family's ancestral tomb. As if his family tomb was some divine resting place. I flung out my hand. Guards, throw him out. You slut. Xue Chonghui roared. You're unfaithful. Disobedient. Had I known you'd turn out like this, I'd never have married you. I picked up the bottle of poison and smashed it straight into his forehead. Blood gushed down his face. Honestly, not stabbing him with the dagger was me being merciful. Feeling clear-headed now, I shouted. I had reached my limit, talking about loyalty and chastity. Why didn't you say that when you married Lu Xuero? Go home and strangle her if you're so righteous. I'm a man, and you call that a man?
Pa.
I had Xue Chonghui beaten until he looked like a dead dog, then threw him out of the estate. Don't let me see you again. It felt amazing. I used to feel sorry for him, thought he was just an innocent man caught in the storm. But now I realized, someone like Xue Chonghui wasn't worth an ounce of sympathy. He was narrow-minded, selfish, hypocritical, holding others to one standard and himself to another. And he believed every rumor he heard. This wasn't about whether I would marry the 9th prince. He hated me because I left him. To a man like him, a woman remarrying was an unforgivable crime. If he couldn't have me, he'd rather see me destroyed. Most men in this world are the same. When Xue Chonghui's outrageous behavior became public, the Xue family's reputation crumbled overnight. Even the common women in the streets whispered that they were reckless with human life. Xue Chonghui was summoned to the palace and publicly scolded by the emperor. He was punished with 3 hours of kneeling outside the Hall of Supreme Harmony. When he returned to the Xue estate, he exploded with rage and smashed up Lu Xuero's entire courtyard. This is all your fault, you stupid woman. You've offended every noble in the palace and dragged me down with you. I must have been out of my mind to marry you. You're not even half of what Aang was." Lu Xuero had never suffered such humiliation. "So, you still can't let her go? Too bad for you. She's beloved in the palace now. She wouldn't look twice at a failure like you." Xue Chonghui snapped and slapped her across the face, knocking her to the ground. Lu Xuero screamed. Blood soaked through her white dress. She went into labor that night. After hours of agony, she gave birth to a baby boy who never took a breath. 2 weeks later, my father and brother finally returned. Not only had they secured victory, they also brought back ironclad evidence of the Lu family's treason. Lu Xuero's father, the former governor of Muzhou, Lu Jilin, had colluded with the rebel Prince Rui. Using his birthday banquet as an excuse, Lu Jilin opened the city gates to let the rebel army in. But his betrayal was discovered by his own subordinate, Luo Feng. Luo immediately executed Lu Jilin and his 2 sons on the spot, then led the city's defenders to resist the invasion. Before the rebel army could massacre the city, Luo Feng entrusted the evidence of Lu Jilin's treason to a loyal aide and smuggled it out. He was a true hero, a loyal general. He had once served under my father. They had shared blood and fire together. I used to call him Uncle Luo when I was little. He'd held me in his arms, taken me horseback riding, and even taught my brother martial arts. The day before he left for Muzhou, he visited our home to say goodbye. He told my father that when I got married, he'd be sure to come back for the wedding banquet. I never imagined that would be our last farewell. He didn't survive. He died under the rebel blade along with 30,000 soldiers who defended the city. The scandal rocked the court and stunned the people. The Ministry of Justice took charge of the investigation. So while our family was receiving imperial honors, the Xue family's estate was being raided. To cut ties quickly, the Xue family wasted no time. They gave Lu Xuero a letter of divorce on the spot. 2 weeks later, she was sentenced to be cut in half at the waist. The Xue family, of course, insisted they knew nothing. They claimed they had been kept entirely in the dark. Although they avoided full execution, they were still stripped of their titles and exiled from the capital. But in my previous life, the real reason the Xue family was wiped out was because Xue Chonghui had known the truth and chose to cover it up to protect Lu Xuero and her unborn child. He might have even helped in hunting down the witnesses. I didn't go to see the Xue family off when they were exiled, but I did attend Lu Xuero's execution. I wanted to see what she looked like at the end, when her fate mirrored mine from the last life. On the execution ground, Lu Xuero's fear turned to fury. She screamed at Xue Chonghui. "Xue Chonghui, you heartless bastard. You and your whole family will never die in peace." Then she turned to me. "Shunning, why do you get to live better than me? Why does he still think about you? Why?" It was all supposed to be mine. She had gone mad. Maybe that was the only way she could numb herself. I knew it. She was the one who had spread the rumors about me marrying the 9th prince. She had also goaded Xue Chonghui into his outburst. Just like in my previous life, she had always wanted me dead. But there was one thing I only discovered later. That night she spent with Prince Rui's heir, she'd been drugged. By her own father. She had been offered, like a gift, to Prince Rui's household. The story of her changing affections had been deliberately spread by her father and brothers. They thought that once Prince Rui seized power, Lu Xuero would become the crown princess, the future empress. But when the rebellion failed, it all turned to ashes. When she returned to Jinling and saw her childhood sweetheart had married another, her fate was already sealed. She was just a pawn in her father's ruthless game. And I became the target of all the hate and jealousy she had no place else to pour. In the end, we were all women trapped by other people's ambitions. It was all just pathetic. Years passed. Another spring followed another winter. Outside Muzhou, the snow melted. New grass poked up from the thawed soil. Since my brother took over as the city's new commander, I came here every year to visit. I loved Muzhou. I loved the wind, the snow, the vast open sky. Aying. My brother waved as he ran toward me. Did father write to call you home? He's picked out 2 new marriage prospects for you. Hiya. I dug my heels into the horse's sides. I'm not going. If he forces me to marry, I'll never go back. Hiya. A few days later, they found a frozen corpse in the beggar's den behind an abandoned temple. He had been dead for days. In his hand was a torn divorce letter. The end.